Welcome to another night of Reddit stories to fall asleep to. Whether you're winding down after a long day or just looking for a peaceful escape, we've got a selection of stories that will ease your mind and carry you into the night. We'll dive into the world of heartfelt confessions, unexpected twists and touching moments from real people, just like you, who've shared their experiences on Reddit. These stories are meant to relax, entertain, and soothe you into a calm state, perfect for drifting off into dreamland. So, settle in, get cozy, and let the stories take you on a gentle journey. Take a deep breath. Let go of the stress from today. It's time to relax. Let's get started. Thought for a couple of seconds, I've always believed that blood is thicker than water. Family sticks together, no matter how messy life gets. But last December, everything I thought I knew about loyalty, honesty, and what it means to protect someone I love exploded into a whirlwind of deception, allegations, and a rift that may never heal. I'm 33F, me, married to my husband C, 35, and together we run a small artisan bakery in our hometown. My younger sister Danny, 29F, has been my best friend since childhood. We shared a bunk bed, secrets scrawled in notebooks, under our pillows, and the dream of opening a little shop that smelled like fresh bread. When I inherited our grandmother's fixer-upper cottage on the edge of town last year, the one where Grandma taught us to knead dough and braid challah, I was overjoyed because I knew how much it meant to Danny. What I didn't know was that, behind her bright smile, she was struggling with debts she'd hidden from everyone, and my gift would plunge her into a conspiracy that would tear our family apart. It started innocuously in March 2024, when I told Danny I wanted her to move into the cottage rent-free, put her culinary school skills to work, and help me host weekend baking workshops there. She cried when I told her. Tears of joy, she said, and over the next few weeks she helped me repaint the kitchen cabinets in Grandma's old robin's egg blue, set up wicker baskets for sourdough starters on the porch, and sketched out plans for where to hang antique cake molds. Everything felt like magic. Then one evening after closing the bakery, I noticed her lingering by the office computer, staring at our ledger. When I asked if she needed help sorting supplies, she jumped, closed the spreadsheet and laughed nervously. I brushed it off. Family deserves privacy, right? But that moment tugged at me. May rolled in with whirlwind weekends. We hosted our first Grandma's Cottage bread retreat, inviting 10 guests for a full weekend of mixing, shaping, and sharing stories by the fireplace. Danny dazzled, everyone with her cinnamon plum brioche and lemon verbena shortbread. I felt proud, but behind the scenes, the credit card terminal had been glitching. Refunds sent to guests 3 or 4 times, inventory mysteriously disappearing, cash register drawers short several $100s at closing, and no sign of forced entry. With the cottage off the main street and only 2 staff members, me and Danny, I assumed I was making mistakes in my accounting. Maybe I hadn't double-checked totals after a long day. But then I found something I could no longer ignore, an envelope tucked under the floorboard of the antique sideboard in our demo room. Inside was a stack of printed email statements from the bakery's bank account, showing multiple transfers out, transfers labeled D. Martinez to a PayPal account I'd never heard of. My heart sank when every transfer corresponded exactly to the amounts missing from the register and the terminal refunds. $750 here, $200 there, over $8,500 in just 3 weeks. My first instinct was denial. Danny could never steal from me. We were sisters, friends, partners in every sense. I confronted her gently that night in the cottage kitchen, staring down at the wooden table Grandma had carved, my hands trembling around a mug of chamomile tea. I explained what I'd found and asked if there was some innocent explanation. Danny's face went pale. She dropped her tea and it shattered on the floor, ivory shards glinting in the lamplight. She collapsed to her knees, head in her hands, sobbing, and whispered that she owed money to loan sharks, an anonymous help she took after falling behind on rent and tuition while scraping by on part-time waitressing. She claimed she only meant to borrow the money to stay afloat, and she'd planned to repay me when her book deal came through. She'd applied for a publishing grant to fund her first cookbook, Bread and Heart, and she was sure the check would arrive any day. Then she swore she'd stop, that she hadn't taken a cent for herself, only paid off loans, but I could keep all the paperwork so I could track her withdrawals. My chest ached seeing her like that, humiliated and panicked, and I thought, all right, I'll handle this because family sticks together. Over the next 2 weeks, I covered her shortfalls quietly. I used savings to cover the refunds and register shortages, adjusted payroll, and even transferred money from my personal account into the bakeries to hide the gaps. I confronted our accountant, Mia, asking if she could overlook some misentries while Danny sorted out her finances. I told Mia it was private family stuff, a delicate situation, and I trusted she'd never breathe a word. Danny was mortified but grateful. She cried every night, promising she'd earn the money back tenfold. And for a while it worked. The workshops continued, and guests praised our synergy. I thought I was protecting my sister, giving her time to get back on her feet without shaming her. But the truth has a way of coming out. In early July, our landlord at the cottage, where we'd sublet the upstairs apartment to a college student, Riley, knocked on my bakery door. Riley was furious, accusing me of trying to evict her without notice because her rent payments had bounced, claims that her roommate had taken off without paying her share, and threats of small claims. Court. I explained I hadn't been involved in her lease at all, and when I checked the paperwork, someone had forged my signature on her rent checks that cleared my personal checking account. My stomach twisted. I stared at the deposit slips and realized the same PayPal account from the bakery was receiving weekly transfers from my personal account too. Someone had found a way to siphon money quietly through both businesses and my home finances. The realization hit me like a punch. It wasn't just the bakery suffering, it was everything I owned. I felt betrayed, sickened. That night, I locked the cottage door behind me, after hours alone with only the moonlight filtering through Grandma's lace curtains, and dialed Danny. I confronted her again, harder this time, and read her the bank statements, the forged rent checks, and the amounts that matched her PayPal transfers. She broke down completely, confessing she'd been covering debts for her boyfriend, Liam, who'd conned her into thinking he'd repay her with crypto trading profits. She said Liam kidnapped her laptop, threatened her if she didn't send more money, even showed up drunk at the bakery one night begging for just one more transfer. But she never told me, wanting to protect me from his wrath, convinced I'd banish her if I knew. She begged me to believe she wasn't a thief that love had made her blind. I sat there listening, and somewhere between rage and heartbreak I realized I had to choose. Protect my sister, or protect my bakery, my home, my reputation. The next morning, I called C at work and told him everything. The missing money, the forged checks, the threats from Liam, and Danny's tearful pleas. He was horrified. He said I couldn't let this go on any longer. Then I called our business lawyer, prepared an emergency meeting with our bank to freeze accounts, and texted the bakery's entire staff to tell them the shop would be closed until further notice. My hands shook from the adrenaline. I drafted an email to our accounting firm explaining the fraud and kidnappings of funds, collected every scrap of evidence, and prepared to file a police report. By midday, uniformed officers and a private investigator were at the cottage, interviewing Riley, taking fingerprints from the kitchen counter, and photographing the ledger. Danny stood outside in her flannel pajamas, hugging herself, watching. The smoke rising from the bakery chimney as the lights went dark. Word spread faster than I expected. The next morning, Instagram threads were buzzing. Is the Grandma's Cottage Bakery closing? Did you hear the owner's SIS embezzle? What happened to that adorable sister team? My parents, back in our hometown, were blindsided. They texted me furious. How could you let this go on so long? You protected her more than you protected yourself? We worried about her, but this? They demanded I fire Danny, press charges, and cut out the cancer from our family business. Meanwhile, Danny's phone was flooded with ominous texts from Liam, pleas, ultimatums, threats to expose our little secret if she didn't send more. She blocked him and begged me to drop the investigation, to let her make restitution quietly. I told her I loved her but couldn't keep covering her sins. She called me an ice queen, a traitor, the baker who sold her sister down the river, the K. Police investigation uncovered that Liam had set up multiple PayPal accounts in Danny's name, coerced her into linking them to our accounts, and even forged our signatures on documents. They arrested him in August at a motel on the highway, where he was living under a stolen identity. But the damage was done. Our bakery's reputation took a nosedive. Banks closed our merchant account, our landlord sued for rent fraud, and my personal credit was frozen pending resolution of Riley's small claims suit. I spent weeks in hearings, signing affidavits, testifying under oath, and publishing a public statement to our customers explaining the unauthorized access and promising to make things right. Some clients returned, but many moved on. Danny moved away, refusing to face anyone. She broke all ties, blocked parents, friends, and me. Our mother sent me voicemail after voicemail, alternately begging me to help her daughter and scolding me for destroying her life. My father, who always told me, "You've got a good head on your shoulders," hasn't spoken to me since he found out I involved the authorities. C and I are struggling to rebuild the bakery. He's supportive but weary of the endless paperwork and the questions from landlords and suppliers about our internal controls. And I'm haunted by sleepless nights where I replay that moment. In the kitchen, listening to Danny's sobs, wondering if I could have handled it differently, if I could have saved both my sister and my business without betraying one for the other. So here I am, standing in the half-silent bakery on a quiet Tuesday morning, flour dusting my palms over the counter, thinking that sometimes doing the right thing feels like the worst thing you could ever do. I protected my livelihood and enforced justice, but I may have lost my sister and half my family in the process. Am I the asshole for reporting the fraud, freezing the accounts, and calling the cops on the woman I grew up protecting? Or would it have been more assholish to keep covering up the theft, ignoring the warning signs, and risk my entire life's work to shield someone I love? Because right now, I don't know which hurts more, the wound of betrayal or the weight of principles upheld. Am I the asshole? Thought for a few seconds. I never thought my decision to finally bring our family skeleton out of the closet would blow up my life. And yet here I am, scrambling to pick up the pieces of relationships I once thought unbreakable. I'm 30F. Me, a high school English teacher in a small coastal town, and our family has always been complicated. My parents, Dad, 62M, and Mom, 60F, were high school sweethearts who married young. I'm the oldest of three. My brother Evan, 28M, and sister Nina, 25F, rounded out our picture-perfect nuclear family. We lived in the same yellow house with the white picket fence my entire childhood, annual vacations to grandma's, beach cottage, and all the extracurricular chaos you'd expect from a household full of kids. On the surface, we appeared close and content. Underneath, there was always a tension I could never name, an unspoken rule that we never asked too many questions about where dinner conversations ended or how Dad's job as a traveling salesman really took him away for weeks. Last summer, when Dad announced he'd been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's, our world shifted. Suddenly, the veneer of normalcy cracked. Mum leaned on us hard, planning doctor appointments, selling the house to move closer to care facilities, and leaning into her role as his full-time caregiver. It brought out the best in some of us and the worst in others. Evan, under pressure to step up to help with finances, quit his stable tech job and moved back home to take Dad's place on the road once a month. Nina, meanwhile, started shutting down entirely, skipping family dinners, ghosting phone calls, and living off the couch in the guest room, headphones glued to her ears. I tried to be the mediator, juggling my own classes and grading with trips to the hospital and rush visits to check on Mom's stress levels. It felt like I was holding a teetering stack of plates, and any moment one could shatter. Then, just before Christmas, everything came crashing down. I went to Mom's bedside to drop off some comfort muffins and found her in tears, not because of Dad's illness, but because of something discovered in the back of an old jewelry box. She had been sorting through mementos for a garage sale when she unearthed a faded envelope addressed to "My dearest Jane," the handwriting eerily familiar. Inside was a letter dated 1985, written in Dad's careful script. "My dearest Jane, if you are reading this, please know how sorry I am for everything. I never meant for our secret to tear our lives apart. When I met Mary, I thought my past was behind me, but you were the one who taught me what love could be. I have always carried the memory of you and our child. I wish I had the courage back then to do the right thing." Mom clutched the letter like a lifeline, her knuckles white. Jane was the name of a girl Dad had dated before meeting Mom, but our family legend was that the relationship ended amicably and cleanly. The letter's reference to our child stunned us all. I called Evan and Nina in tears, and we cornered Dad that night in the living room, the three of us sewing circle-style around him as if a confession booth. He turned ghastly pale. He stammered, "I'm so sorry." And then full-blown tears were rolling down his cheeks. He revealed that at age 19, before he and Mom were married, he and Jane had a child. The baby girl, our half-sister, had been born prematurely in a run-down hospital. Jane, terrified and without support, signed the baby over to foster care. Dad had arranged it quietly, then left the state for college. He never saw her again. He wrote letters for months, but got no replies. By the time he met Mom, that chapter felt closed. He buried it so deeply he almost forgot it existed. And yet here we were, holding proof of a family member we'd never known. The next days blurred into frantic Googling and phone calls to adoption agencies. Evan wanted to respect Dad's wishes to leave her be. He argued that we shouldn't upend another person's life for a secret from 40 years ago. Nina was desperate to find her. She wanted a sister, someone to smother with Christmas gifts and sleepovers. Mom swung between deep betrayal. How could you hide this from me, from all of us? And remorse for how she'd treated Dad over his traveling. I felt torn between honoring Dad's request for privacy and my own impulse to find Jane, to bring her into our family, to finally fill in a hole none of us knew existed. Christmas came and went in a grey fog. No one felt like decorating. No one had the heart to sing carols. On New Year's Eve, I was grading essays at my kitchen table when a ping on my phone lit up the screen. A Facebook friend request from Kelsey Martin. I clicked her page and stared. A bright-eyed woman in her early 30s holding a toddler, smiling in a sunlit park. Kelsey Martin was our birth mother's name. Jane had married and had her name changed. My pulse raced. I sent a message. "Hi, Kelsey. My name is Samantha Parker. I believe you were adopted from foster care in early 1980 in Clevedale County. I think you might be my sister, and I would love to talk if you're open to it." 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. "Samantha? I didn't know I was adopted. This is a lot. I'm meeting a friend for coffee tomorrow afternoon. If you really are my sister, come find me at Maple Street Cafe at 2. My heart pounded. I called Evan and Nina at once. They argued in my earphone. Nina insisted we drop everything. Evan begged caution, worried it could be a hoax. I told them I had to go. The next day, I parked outside Maple Street Cafe, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. At exactly 2 p.m. a woman stepped out, tall, hazel-eyed, with a gentle smile. Her hair was the same warm chestnut as mine. I approached, voice trembling. "Kelsey." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Sam, it's me." We embraced, and it was like finding a missing melody in a song I had only hummed half-remembered. Inside, we talked for 3 hours. Kelsey had grown up in a loving foster family, excelled in school, and discovered her adoption papers at age 20. She'd always wondered about biological connections. She had a 2-year-old daughter, Emma, and a happy life, but said she'd always felt something was missing. I cried, then she cried. We made tentative plans to introduce her to our parents. But when I called home to fill everyone in, the bombshell detonated once more. Mom gasped. Evan shouted that I was trespassing, revealing too much without consulting the family. Nina whispered, "I can't believe you went behind our backs." Dad's voice cracked. "We needed time to process. You rushed in." By evening, our group text was a war zone. Accusations, threats to press charges for harassment, demands. I delete Kelsey's contact. Kelsey, meanwhile, stared at her phone. "I never wanted to cause pain," she told me through tears. I just wanted a sister. I felt torn. I had given her hope and also opened a door to chaos. My parents refused. To answer Kelsey's calls, Nina blocked her. Evan insisted we respect Dad's privacy, while Mom waffled between furious betrayal and deep sorrow for Jane's pain. I was the catalyst, happy tears and vindicated bonds for Kelsey, but bitterness and fractured trust for my own blood. Now, 6 weeks later, Kelsey is staying with a friend 2 states away, reluctant to cross the family threshold. She misses us, but also fears rejection. Mom sends half-hearted birthday cards. Evan still won't speak to me without arguing. Dad leaves the house most days to clear his head. Nina won't return my texts. My own husband wonders if I overstepped, if I should have waited for Dad's blessing, or at least looped in Evan and Nina first. But every time I think of Kelsey alone in a strange town, I choke back tears. I feel like the villain in my own story, or maybe the hero who rushed in too soon. I can't sleep. I'm haunted by both scenes. Kelsey's hopeful face in that cafe, and my mother's red-rimmed eyes when I called her afterward. I still believe Jane's daughter deserved to know her family. I still believe secrets this big can't stay buried forever. But I also can't ignore the wreckage left behind, the anger in my siblings' voices, the disappointment in my parents' texts, the strain in my marriage when I bring up any of this. So here I am, typing this from a couch I've cycled through 5 times tonight, wondering, did I do the right thing by reaching out to Kelsey, even though it ripped our family's fragile bonds to shreds? Or am I the asshole for barging in on a painful chapter Dad wanted to keep closed, for letting my own longing override the family's need to heal in private? Should I have waited for a unanimous vote? Or is any pain justified to give a soul their roots back? Am I the asshole? Thought for a couple of seconds, I never imagined a single decision to protect my niece would fracture my entire family, but here we are. My name is Kara, 35F. I'm a nurse in a busy urban hospital, married to my husband, E, 37M. And together, we have 2 kids, my daughter Mia, 8, and our son Owen, 5. I come from a large family. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, and we've always been close. Big holiday gatherings, birthday blowouts, endless inside jokes. My youngest sister, Jade, 24F, has always been the wild child. Charismatic, impulsive, fiercely independent, but with a volatility that worried us all. Last summer, Jade moved back in with our parents after a breakup. She bounced from job to job, bartending, temp work, painting houses. She'd disappear for days, show up drunk or hungover, and crash on the couch. Our parents fussed, but I'd grown accustomed. Jade was family, and we'd help her until she got back on her feet. In October, though, things got darker. I arrived at my parents' for a Sunday dinner to find Jade slumped in the kitchen, my 6-year-old niece, Lily, perched on her lap. Jade's lipstick was smeared, her eyes puffy. Lily was crying softly, rubbing her sister's arm. When I asked what happened, Jade snapped, "It's nothing, just spilled juice." But Lily blurted out, "Aunt Kara, Auntie Jade yelled at me." "And threw a mug," I froze. Lily pointed to the shattered ceramic at Jade's feet. Jade waved it away, but I saw a bruise forming on Lily's forearm. My stomach sank. I took Lily aside into the living room. "Sweetie, did Jade hurt you?" She nodded, tears in her eyes, and whispered that her aunt had shoved her when Lily tried to stop Jade from drinking more wine. I knelt and hugged her. My mind raced. Jade had always been temperamental, but I never thought she'd harm her own daughter. I felt the heat in my cheeks, anger, fear, betrayal. That night, I called E, and we convened quietly in our kitchen. "I think Jade's abusing Lily," I said, my voice shaking. E's face went pale. We agreed I needed to confront our parents first. They'd minimize it, but I had to try. The next day, I told my mom in private. I saw a bruise on Lily's arm. She told me Jade hit her. My mother's face went red. "Are you exaggerating?" she hissed. My father intervened. "Jade's going through a lot. Stop stirring trouble." I insisted. "This is not normal or okay. Lily's scared." They told me to butt out of family business. I felt trapped. My sister's child was endangered. Yet my parents refused to see it. So against their wishes, I called Child Protective Services. My heart pounded as I gave my name and address, explaining I was concerned for Lily's safety. I didn't sugarcoat it. I described the bruise, the shattered mug, Jade's intoxication. They said an investigator would be by within 48 hours. I dreaded the fallout. Last night, the CPS worker came, polite, professional, asked to speak to Lily, alone. Afterward, she confirmed she'd open an investigation. I stayed in my car watching Jade's face as she returned the investigator's questions. Quiet, distant. Lily clung to her side. When the worker left, Jade turned to my parents and screamed, "She's trying to ruin me! Kara's a snitch!" My parents looked stunned, then furious. They called me immediately, demanding I rescind my report, or they'd never let me see my niece again. They accused me of betraying sisterly loyalty and disrespecting our family unity. Now, a week later, Jade's moved out of my parents. She's staying with a friend in another city. Lily is in protective custody temporarily. She's in a foster placement with a family friend. My parents are shattered, blaming me for sending Lily away. They say I should have handled it privately, that I should have confronted Jade more gently, that I destroyed our family's reputation. They've refused to speak to me, blocked my number, and declared I'm no longer welcome at Christmas. My other siblings are split. 2 back my decision, 2 are angry. I didn't exhaust all options first. At work, I'm on edge. CPS will likely clear me of wrongdoing, but hearing that I'm the villain in my family crushes me. E tells me I did the right thing. You protected an innocent child, but I wonder if I went too far. Could I have persuaded Jade to get counseling? Could I have supervised more carefully instead of calling CPS? But then I remember Lily's tear-streaked face, the bruise, the mug shards. I remember Jade's unreadable expression when the investigator asked if she'd ever hit her own child. I remember my own hands trembling as I dialed that number. Now I'm faced with an impossible question. I saved a child's well-being, but destroyed my relationship with my family. I stand by my decision. Children deserve protection over family. Pride. But am I the asshole for involving the authorities instead of handling it within the family first? Or would it have been the real asshole move to wait, to hope Jade would change and risk Lily's safety? Does loyalty to blood override duty to protect the vulnerable? I don't know if I'm right, or if I broke something irreparable in my family by making them outsiders in Lily's life. Am I the asshole? I never imagined a single dinner party could upend my entire life, but here we are, scrambling through the wreckage of what I thought was an unbreakable friendship. I'm 27F, work as a graphic designer, and I've been best friends with Tessa, 28F, since freshman year of college. We shared apartments, boyfriends, separately, and even launched a small freelance studio together 2 years ago. We were inseparable. Our families vacationed together, our holidays merged, and we bragged about one another to anyone who'd listen. But a casual chat last month turned into a lawsuit, a police report, and the quiet dissolution of everything we built. Now I'm standing on the ashes of our friendship, wondering if I'm the asshole for blowing the whistle on what she did. It started in early April. Tessa and I had just landed a big contract with a local startup. Branding, web design, social media assets, the works. The pay was enough to cover both our mortgages for 6 months. For weeks we worked late into the night, feeding each other pizza rolls, sharing Spotify playlists, and teasing one another about who would fall asleep first at the drawing board. I'd handle the web assets. She'd own the branding strategy. We were a well-oiled machine. Then, 2 days before the deadline, I noticed something odd. Payments we'd received from the client hadn't hit our joint studio account. I asked Tessa about it. She laughed and said, "It's Monday, banks take a while, chill." But on Wednesday, still nothing. I checked the client's invoice portal, marked paid, but our bank records showed no deposit. I called the startup's CFO, who assured me they'd processed both payments into our designated account. Confused, I circled back to Tessa, quietly asking if she'd maybe routed the funds somewhere else. Her face went blank. She stammered, "No, why would I do that?" I shrugged and let it go. We needed to hustle on the deliverables. On Friday, the day before launch, we ordered lunch together. She was on her phone the whole time, pounding away at texts. I nudged her. "Everything okay?" She shot a sharp look. Work stuff. I sensed something tense, but didn't push. That evening, I came back to our rented studio to find our bank statements printed out on her desk. A black Sharpie scrawl atop one page that said, "Don't worry, they'll clear." My stomach dropped. I flipped through the pages. 2 client invoices totaling $18,400 had been transferred out the minute they cleared into a different account. T. Ramsey. I stared at her name scribbled at the top. I felt cold. I confronted her right then. "Why is my client's money in your personal account?" She spun around, eyes blazing. "You're accusing me?" she hissed. "I'm not stupid." I took a breath. "The statements show it. Explain." She balled her fists and shouted, "It's for next month's bills." "I'm behind." My heart sank. I softened. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have covered you." She glared as if I'd insulted her. "This is my fight. You stay out." I shook my head. I grabbed the papers. "That's our business." "Money." She lunged, tried to snatch them back. I shoved her arm away. She shouted, "Get out!" And I left, broken. That night, I called our CPA friend, Marisol, and asked what I should do. Marisol suggested I freeze the account access and contact the startup to let them know I was investigating. I dreaded it, but agreed. By Saturday morning, I'd locked our studio account, set up new logins, and emailed the startup's CFO. "We're reviewing billing discrepancies and will ensure full delivery once resolved." I didn't mention Tessa. I just wanted the project. Safe? Later that afternoon, Tessa texted me a string of angry messages. How I'd humiliated her, how she'd handle her finances herself, how I was overreacting and betraying trust. She demanded I unlock the account. I refused. She called me, screaming that I was turning her into a criminal, that I didn't care about her struggles and that I was too proud. I tried to reason. "We're partners. You can't unilaterally siphon out nearly 20K. She hung up. When Monday rolled around, the startup emailed back. They understood the hold but needed deliverables. I scramble-coded the website, but without the branding assets, the site felt half-finished. I reached out to the client. "We're working on it. Sorry for the delay." They replied tersely, "We need everything by end of day." I had to choose. Keep pursuing the missing funds or hand over what I had and hope they accepted it. I delivered everything I could by 5 p.m. They sent back a stern note threatening to pull the contract if the branding files didn't arrive by tomorrow. Meanwhile, Tessa stormed into the studio at 6 p.m., her face white. She demanded logins, accused me of tanking our reputation, and slapped her phone against the desk, showing a text from the startup exec. "We are now seriously considering legal action." She wailed that I'd ruined us, that she was already deep in credit card debt, and that this was our last chance. I felt torn. I still cared about her, but I couldn't cover up theft. I called the police to record an official theft report. One line: "Unauthorized transfer of business funds." They took a statement, told me they'd follow up. Tessa reacted by filing her own complaint, claiming I had ghosted her, locked her out of her own company, and was embezzling the money myself. She posted on our mutual work chat that I was abandoning ship and sullying her name. Suddenly, half our freelance network believed her version. I got messages from mutual contacts, some urging me to reconcile, others telling me she's always been the creative genius and I was the numbers nerd who hated sharing. Over the next week, the startup froze payments completely, demanded all work back, and threatened litigation against both partners. Our little studio dissolved in days. I spent sleepless nights compiling every piece of evidence, bank statements, text logs, emails, all time-stamped. I hired a lawyer who said Tessa's claim was nonsense. She'd admitted transferring the money. He drafted a cease and desist for her chilling our joint accounts further, and threatened suit if she didn't drop her harassment. I served it to her. She posted screenshots on social media. "Strange how theft turns you hateful," she wrote, tagging our studio's page. She painted herself as a struggling artist, ground down by my greed. My phone blew up with hate, DMs accusing me of ruining her career, betraying my best friend, being hungry for control. My own family urged me to apologize to save our friendship. Money comes and goes. I thought about unfreezing the account, giving back all her share and just letting it go, but I'd be complicit. Last night, I received a final demand from her lawyer: either return the full $8,400 plus interest or face a countersuit for defamation and conversion of funds. I forwarded it to my attorney, who laughed. She has no case. But the emotional toll is crushing. I haven't heard from Tessa since. I walk past her old desk every morning and see a single post-it note: "Why did you do this to me?" I wonder if I destroyed the best friendship of my life, or if I was right to refuse complicity in her theft. I thought I was protecting our business, but I've lost the person I trusted most, so here I am, broke, accused of villainy, and drowning in guilt and legal fees. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but I couldn't pretend the money wasn't stolen. Am I the asshole for pressing charges against my best friend, for reaching out to the client and the bank instead of covering for her, and for potentially ending a decade-long friendship to uphold integrity? Or would it have been worse to let her get away with almost 20 grand and watch our studio collapse under the weight of a crime? I'm torn between loyalty and justice, and I don't know which is the real asshole move. I've never felt more torn, terrified, and oddly exhilarated all at once. My name's Harper, 32F, and I work as a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle. For most of my adult life, I've been the responsible one in my family, the reliable daughter, the dependable granddaughter, the cousin who organized our annual beach trips. But a single weekend changed everything, and now I'm wrestling with whether I became the asshole by exposing a secret that tore my entire family apart. It all started last Christmas. My grandparents, Nana, 78F, and Papa, 80mem, own the old family cabin on Whidbey Island. Built by my great-grandfather in the 1940s, it's a weathered two-story cedar house perched on a bluff overlooking Puget Sound. Every summer and holiday, our extended clan would descend on that cabin. Aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, some for a week, some for a day. It was chaotic, noisy, blissful. But over the past decade, Nana and Papa's health declined. They asked me, as their most organized grandchild, to oversee upkeep and scheduling. I took it seriously, balancing their care with my job, making sure the roof didn't leak and the guests rotated fairly. I loved it. In October, Nana fell and broke her hip. She and Papa moved into a care facility, and we were told the cabin would have to be sold to cover medical bills if nobody bought it ourselves. My two older cousins, Ethan, 35M, and Marisol, 34F, and I were offered first right of refusal. Ethan, a busy defense attorney in D.C., said he couldn't manage a second home. Marisol, a marketing executive in L.A., loved the cabin but balked. At the cost. She'd just bought a condo and wasn't interested in the upkeep. That left me. I felt obligated, so I told my parents and the cousins that I'd raise the funds, take out a home equity loan on my Seattle townhouse, cover the taxes and upkeep, and convert the cabin into a shared retreat. I figured I could handle Airbnb, rentals when it sat empty, and cover costs easily. What I didn't know was that Marisol and Ethan resented me for it. They'd assumed the cabin would be ours equally, with costs shared. Neither approached me to negotiate. After Nana's accident, they whispered to our parents that I'd cornered the property, that I was turning the cabin into Harper's Airbnb cash cow. I thought it harmless family gossip until mid-November, when I got a panicked call from Papa's nurse. The cousins had shown up unannounced, demanding to see their inheritance paperwork, furious that the cabin's title transfer was in my name only. I tried to explain. It was how real estate law worked, but I'd cover all expenses and keep them as equal partners. They stormed off, hurling accusations. "You're profiteering off Nana and Papa. You're using them while they're helpless." My parents, ever conflict-averse, texted me, "Can you call your cousins? Smooth this over before Christmas." I agreed, set up a family video call. I thought a conversation, an email, something would clear the air, but then they dropped the bomb. In the video chat, Ethan coldly said, "We've known since July you were planning to take the cabin for yourself. We found your email chains." My heart sank. I never discussed this outside of family group texts until that moment. Marisol leaned in, her eyes glittering. Don't pretend you didn't talk about it with your boss, your friends, everyone but us. I sputtered denials. They both had laptops open. Behind them, I saw printed pages. They accused me of forging a secret plan. I knew my words were twisting in my throat to say I loved the cabin, but I couldn't get them to believe me. That's when Sarah, my cousin's wife, cousin-in-law really, snatched one of those printed sheets off Ethan's desk and scrolled through it on camera. It was a letter Nana had written in September, leaving the cabin to my dearest Harper. My chest clenched. I'd never shown it to anyone. Nana had handed it to me in private with tears in her eyes, asking me to keep it safe until she passed. She'd wanted me to have it outright, since I was the one caring for the property. I told Nana I'd respect her wishes and honor Marisol and Ethan by offering them shares. I never intended to freeze them out. But in that moment, holding up Nana's letter, Sarah sneered, "So this is how you won the cabin, by Grandma's last will. What about the times you complained to me about the drafty hall window? Or when you confided in your boyfriend about how much you'd charge per night on Airbnb?" My silence felt deafening. I could barely breathe. I tried to end the call, but it exploded. Ethan shouted, "I want my lawyer on that paper." Marisol hissed, "You're all talk and no heart." My mother burst into the room, phone in hand, screaming, "Harper, you've betrayed us. How could you keep this secret?" I ended the call. My family was livid. Christmas arrived. I drove to the cabin alone, pulling into the gravel driveway under a riot of frost-laden maple branches. The windows were dark, the once welcoming porch light extinguished. I unlocked the door, flicked on the lights. Every corner was exactly as I'd left it. Nana's quilt folded on the daybed, Papa's fishing gear neatly stacked in the corner, our old board games in the cabinet. I walked through room after room, memories echoing in the silence. Then tucked under the daybed was a second letter, this one in Marisol's handwriting. "If Harper claims this, I want my share. We deserve it. You're not the only favored. 1. It was unsigned, but the style matched. My hands were shaking. On Christmas Eve, my parents surprised me at the cabin. They'd packed casseroles, Grandma's famous pecan pie, and insisted we celebrate our last Christmas together. I didn't know whether to hug them or ask them to leave. The tension crackled. By the second slice of pie, tempers flared. My mother threw her napkin down and said, "We all know you've had that letter since September, using Grandma's health as leverage. You're playing favorites." I stood my ground. Nana gave me that letter when she was lucid, happy. She wanted someone she trusted to look after the cabin. "I told you, everyone, that I would treat you equally." My father sighed. "You told us you were taking it full ownership. You never encouraged us to buy in." I confessed that I didn't know they wanted to. They stared at me. Silence. Then my mother stormed out. That night I called Marisol, begging her to drop this feud. She refused. "You need to apologize, Harper. Admit you misled us." I refused. She cried betrayal, said I'd used Grandma's love as a weapon. I hung up. I sat in that cabin wrapped in a blanket, crying for Nana, Papa, for the family I once knew. By morning my decision had crystallized. I would honor Nana's letter and finalize the title in my name. I would continue inviting my cousins and parents for stays, free of charge, but the legal ownership would be mine alone. If they felt betrayed, that was on them. I signed the documents that day and uploaded them to the county recorder's office. Then I called Nana and Papa at the care facility, read them the news and heard Nana's relieved, quavering voice. "I always knew you'd do right by it, darling." Papa chuckled at how I described the holiday fiasco. "Family drama, my dear, you always summoned it." He called me the peacemaker one last time, and I thought maybe I should have kept that letter hidden. Now it's February. My cousins haven't spoken to me since Christmas. My parents visit Nana and Papa without me. Our group chat is dead. Holiday planning is stalled indefinitely. I fill the cabin's calendar with my own friends, colleagues, local volunteers who teach at the nearby art center. I host weekend retreats for breast cancer survivors, kids' summer camps, silent writing weekends, activities Nana loved. The cabin is alive again, but the heart of my family is fractured. Whenever I drive away after a busy weekend, packing up, locking the door, looking back at the frost-hardened windows, I wonder if I was the asshole for revealing Nana's private letter, for rejecting my cousin's claim, for going against my parents' expectations of sharing. I wasn't seeking profit. There's barely enough in Airbnb funds to cover property taxes, but I wanted clarity, security, a way to protect the place. Yet I shattered my family's trust. So here I am, caught between honoring my grandmother's last wish and preserving sibling bonds I've cherished since childhood. Am I the asshole for keeping the inheritance letter private, for refusing to share legal ownership when my cousins only expressed interest after they found out, and for finalizing the cabin's title in my name? Or would it have been the real asshole move to disregard Nana's wishes, cut out local community uses, and let the property become another absentee rental? I don't know which hurts worse, losing control of the cabin or losing my family. What do you think? Am I the asshole? I never expected my simple family dinner invitation to spiral into a full-blown constitutional crisis, but here we are. I'm 34F, me, happily married to my husband, J, 36M, with our 2 kids, ages 4 and 2. We live 5 miles from my parents' estate in the suburbs of Chicago. My younger brother, S, 30M, has always been the wild card. Brilliant engineer, charismatic dinner party raconteur, but also an impulsive gambler and unapologetic risk-taker. Our parents, M, 63F, and T, 65M, adore him unconditionally, attributing every misstep to youthful exuberance, despite that he's been in financial sharks' nets since he graduated college 7 years ago. In January, S met K, 28F, at a casino lounge. K is gorgeous, tall, platinum blonde, a model with over 200K followers on social media. She carries herself like royalty and seems to attract luxury around her, designer handbags, exotic vacations, private jet selfies. But beneath the gleam, she's secretive about her own finances, and she'll vanish for days without notice, only to reappear with a new story about a business retreat or influencer partnership. Kes was entranced. She made him feel seen, admired, like he'd finally made it. When he announced they were moving in together after just 2 months, our parents threw him a housewarming party at their pool house, inviting half the neighborhood. They beamed as Kay arrived in a $200,000 sports car. I forced a polite smile, but Jay and I exchanged worried glances. By March, cracks were showing. S started borrowing money, small at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, for furniture or renovations, always promising immediate repayment. Then Kay lost her wallet at a fashion event, and S lent her $2,500. Soon S was borrowing from M and T directly. They handed over cashier's checks with tears in their eyes, convinced he was just helping the love of his life. When I tried to pull S aside, he waved me off. "I've got it under control. You should not stress my relationship." M chimed in later. "Let him live his life. Your nagging only makes things worse." I backed down, swallowing my concern. April. 20th should have been a joyous family milestone. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary. They rented an event hall, hired a live band, and spent 6 figures on catering. S and K were center stage, S in a tux, K in a slinky red gown. Halfway through the reception, M caught me texting J. "There's something odd about K's background. I think she's manipulating S." She grabbed my phone, read the messages, and screamed, "How dare you? This is our celebration." T stepped in, furious, telling me I was spreading malicious rumors. I apologized and pretended to put my phone away, but I knew I couldn't stay silent when I overheard S crying in the hallway. K had just told him that unless he borrowed another $10,000 so she could secure her brand partnership, she'd break up with him, and she had receipts showing he'd transferred over $30,000 already. S was panicking, tears staining his tuck shirt. I slipped away from the hall and called Jay, who raced over. We found S curled on the floor, shaking. He confessed everything. K was a professional scammer. She'd convinced him to drain joint savings, accounts, taken out cash advances on his credit cards, and was now pressuring him to mortgage the house. He felt trapped. Jay and I opened our home to him that night. We let him stay in our guest room, and we started making calls to lawyers and financial advisors to undo the damage. Meanwhile, my parents fumed at the reception. They cut the evening short, packed up, and glared at me like I'd derailed their fairy tale. Once S was with us, things escalated. Kay started texting him non-stop, pleading, gaslighting, threatening to reveal all his dirty secrets on social media if he didn't transfer just a little more. She'd post screenshots of private conversations with our parents, claiming S was a hopeless drunk who'd been embezzling from their joint account. S blocked her, but she jumped to emails, voice messages, and finally showed up outside our house one night at 1 a.m., pounding on our door, screaming, "He belongs to me. You have to let him go." Jay had to call the police to remove her. I wanted to shield S, but also preserve my relationship with my parents. Instead, M called me furious. "How dare you side with that vile woman? Get my son back here, or don't bother coming to dinner again." T threatened to cut me out of the will. It was absurd, because K was the villain, but they blamed me for encouraging S to sever ties. My mother insisted that true love is tested, said I was poisoning his mind, claimed S was happy with K and I was jealous. My father shut down any argument by saying, "We raised you to be considerate, but here you are judging choices you'll never understand." I tried to present facts, bank statements showing K's unauthorized withdrawals, lawyer letters, therapist notes, documenting S's breakdown. They dismissed it as hearsay and overreaction. They called a family council. MT, me, Jay, and S were summoned to their estate for a private intervention. Jay wanted to decline, but I convinced him we needed to stand up for what was right. That Sunday, we walked into the grand foyer. M's eyes were red. T sat imposing in a high-backed chair. They motioned us to sit on velvet sofas. S looked exhausted, and I squeezed his hand. M began, "You've embarrassed us. You've stolen our joy. You've sided with someone who poisons your mind. S, you were supposed to be the responsible one." She glared at me. "And you've always tried to be the good child, but now your righteousness has turned you into a fanatic." T leaned forward. "This K person is a part of our family now, and you will accept that." S tried to speak, but M cut him off. "Not until you agree to return to us, to apologize for this madness." I stood. I felt Jay's hand on my back. "No," I said. My voice trembled but grew steadier. "I will not apologize for protecting my brother. He is in debt, emotionally broken, and being exploited. K has lied, stolen, and threatened violence. I have evidence." I held up a sheaf of papers. Bank alerts, police reports, texts where K admitted she was targeting wealthy men for financial gain. T snatched them and tossed them aside. Fabricated. I looked at S, whose eyes were hollow. "Brother," I said softly, "you have a choice. You can stay and be scammed, or you can come with us, get help, rebuild your life." Jay added, "We have plans, a financial restructuring, therapy, a development program, everything he needs." M screamed, "Traitors, you're stealing my son." She lunged at me. Jay caught her arm. Essie stood, shaking. He looked at me, tears in his eyes, and nodded slowly. That was the breaking point. S gathered his coat. He left the room with Jay, and I followed. I heard my father yell, "You'll regret this." My mother sobbed, "You'll see, she's poisoning you." I stepped into the hallway and felt a sick thrill. We were free of that toxic nonsense. But my heart sank thinking of the family rift. Now it's been 2 weeks. S is living with us temporarily. He's working nights at a startup firm Jay recommended, attending therapy and retraining professionally. He's showing signs of hope. Kay has posted screeds online calling him a traitor, twisted our parents' names, and begged her followers to help me reclaim my love. M and T have texted me daily, angry, wounded, full of guilt trips. They've refused to see S, refused to speak to me, and declared that Kay is family now. They've disinvited us from upcoming Memorial Day barbecue and threatened to ostracize us permanently unless we relent. I'm torn. Part of me aches to mend fences. The image of my mother tearfully clutching my father's arm haunts me. But another part whispers that if I cave now, K will entrench deeper, S will be pulled back into her web, and my parents will continue enabling disaster. J says I'm doing the right thing, that true love is looking out for someone's welfare, not just preserving appearances. S is grateful beyond words. He says he finally sees his own strengths again. So here we are, estranged from my parents, with my brother on the road to recovery. I feel like I've saved him, but sacrificed my peace with my family. Am I the asshole for refusing to pretend Kay is harmless and insisting that my parents take a stand against her? Or is it more asshole to let a con artist destroy my brother's life in the name of family unity? I'm exhausted, heartbroken, but certain I had to choose between loyalty to a manipulative stranger and loyalty to my brother's well-being. What would you do? Am I the asshole? I've always prided myself on being the peacemaker in my family, the one who smooths over disputes and reminds everyone what really matters: family. But lately, I'm starting to wonder if I crossed a line. Bear with me, because this is long and messy. I'm 29F, married to my husband D, 31 for 3 years, and we live about an hour away from my parents. My younger sister L, 26F, has always been the golden child, smart, bubbly, the one our parents bragged about to anyone who'd listen. She's also a bit of a drama magnet, always in some romantic soap opera-worthy saga. Last year, she started dating R, 28M, and I knew instantly he wasn't good for her. Gaslighting comments thinly veiled as jokes, excessive jealousy, and a surprising inability to manage money, which he made no secret of. But L was smitten. She always is. Fast forward to last month. L and R announced they're engaged. Cue parental gushing. My mum went out and bought a wedding planning book before L even sent out save the date cards. I offered to help scout venues, but L insisted she had everything under control. Fine. My husband and I were happy for her, but uneasy. No one questioned how serious R was about marriage. He'd never held a steady job, and L had always talked about someday moving abroad, but R wasn't keen on that. It felt like a mismatch, but family jumped in with congratulations anyway. Then things got strange. R insisted on a gentleman's agreement that neither of us would disclose the details of the bachelor party weekend. He insisted I not peek at the group chat, despite being the maid of honor. D and I shrugged it off. Bachelor parties are sacred. On the morning of the party, R's best friend texted me, "Be ready for a surprise." I laughed it off. That night, D and I stayed at a cabin nearby. Around midnight, I got a panicked call from L. She was sobbing, telling me R had gotten blackout drunk, peed in the fireplace, and yelled that no one loved him like I did. Huge CD-quality drama. Worse, he'd forced her to drive them home while incapacitated. She swore she was safe, but terrified of what R would do if she told anyone. I insisted she call Uber, got her home safely, and quietly texted R's brother, who lived in town. Next morning at brunch, I mentioned to R's brother what happened. He laughed it off. R's a handful, but he loves her. I felt sick. Fast forward 2 weeks, L calls me crying. She discovered R had secretly drained her savings account, spent it on gambling, then blamed her for letting him. She confronted him, and he turned it around. Claimed she was paranoid, a control freak, and threatened that if she insisted on couples therapy, he'd call the whole relationship off. Elle was terrified of being alone, but broke and scared. I told her to come stay with me and Dee for a few days, until we figured this out. She agreed. When Elle arrived, she was hollowed out, crying every few minutes, convinced she was going crazy. Dee and I set up an appointment with a good financial advisor friend, got her account frozen, and made plans to see a therapist. For 2 days, everything went smoothly. But on day 3, Elle got a frantic call from R. "Show up at my parents' house now, or I'll tell your parents you stole my security deposit." He literally called my parents, threatening to sick them on her. Elle panicked and refused to answer. She retreated to my guest room, shaking. That night, R shows up at my front door at 11 p.m., pounding. He's incoherent, frantic, accusing Elle of robbing him and saying she's ruining his life. I opened the door and calmly said, "R, you need to leave. You're trespassing." He lunged forward, face inches from mine, screaming at me, You're lying for her, you're taking him away. My husband came down, put himself between us, and told him to get off our property. R beat his fists on the door, screaming obscenities, then finally staggered off. I was shaking. The next morning, my parents rang me, outraged that R said L had stolen money and I coached her to lie. They demanded an explanation. I called L and D into the living room and laid out everything. The theft, the exploitation, the blackmail, the threats, and the assault on our property. My dad said, "But he's your future brother-in-law, you can't just vilify him." My mom said, "He's putting on a show, he's emotional, but he loves your sister." I slid them bank statements, therapist appointment confirmations, and D's witness account of last night. I asked, "What do you want me to do? Lie to protect someone who threatened and extorted you?" Mom erupted, "You're turning her against him. This is exactly how you treat everyone, always judgy." Dad nodded. They left upset. L was numb, D was furious. I felt cornered. Loyalty to sister meant protecting her, but loyalty to parents meant preserving peace. I called my parents and apologized if I overstepped, but stood firm that L needed safety and healing. They hung up. It's been a week. L is staying with us permanently while we straighten out her finances and therapy. R has been texting her non-stop. Threats, pleas, self-harm manipulations, and she's blocked him. My parents haven't spoken to me or L. They invited R over for Sunday dinner and expect us to join. My mom called me hysterical. "You have to come, you have to make this right." I told her no, they're livid. The last text from my mom said, "You're burying yourself in your own ego. Fine, don't come. We'll be here without you when you grow up." L cried, convinced she deserves this. D is backing me. "You did the right thing." But now I'm the villain. Am I the asshole here? I see a man abusing my sister, gaslighting her, stealing from her, threatening her safety, yet my parents want me to act like nothing's wrong. To keep the peace. I'm protecting my sister and enforcing boundaries in my home. Have I gone too far by refusing to pretend everything is okay? Or is burying our heads in the sand the real asshole move?